welcome everybody to this first session of Inking Stories. I'm your host for today and your moderator for the following and the first session of Inking Stories. Some of you know me from within the community. I run tattoo culture. It's I can proudly say it is India's leading destination for tattoo artists and collectors alike. We've been able to play a catalyzing role in just moving this community forward at all times. But today, it's about something different, and that I can only explain to you if I tell you what Inking Stories, what the initiative is all about. So, this initiative came about from the minds of Andre and Sameer, who are the people behind All About Tattoo. And they approached me, they approached tattoo culture, and we somehow got together and brought to life Inking Stories. These sessions that will aim to throw light on the myriad aspects of the tattoo universe. The arts, the culture, the traditions, the people, and all of that forms the community at the end of the day. And today, our first session, we very aptly call it Connecting the Dots. In this session, our esteemed panel will talk about and enlighten us about some of the indigenous and tribal inspired tattoo cultures of the different parts of the world as we aim to somehow find some connecting links among them. They all have their own individual different histories, but at the same time, they sort of have their own stories, and but they also have like common link. And today's short session will try to be an eye opener on those regards. So, without wasting any more of your time, let me quickly start introducing you to our esteemed panel today who have joined us. First up, we have with us out of New Zealand and tattooing out of Gold Coast, Australia, Turumakina. What do I say about Turumakina? If you are a follower of his Instagram handle and not even maybe have met him in person, if you have followed Moko on Instagram, you know the kind of great work that he has put forward to revive the Maori tattoo cultures, to make Maori people in today's times take pride in their own cultures and be vocal about it and be vocal about this revival process. So, Tu, thank you so much for joining us. And next up, also from Australia, but also from India, we have my lovely sister, Swasthik Iyengar. Swasthik tattoos out of Australia, but her work bridges the gaps between East and West. She takes inspiration from her motherland, from kolam, folk kolam art, folk arts of South India, and then she marries them with modern, old school, classic tattooing technicals, and she has created a new world of their own. After that, we have the esteem, the honor of having with us today, straight from one of the homes of tattoo in Japan, Taku Oshima. Taku-san, thank you so much for joining us today. For those who don't know, Taku Oshima is one of the main people responsible for the revival of Jomon period tattooing of Japan, among others. He has a very deep line connect with India itself, which he will tell you about later as the session progresses. Taku-san, again, welcome. After that, in this mix of esteemed tattoo artists, we also have a very uh, a great musician, a great artist herself, who brings very fresh perspectives to this panel as a tattoo collector. Please welcome Kiss Nuka. I'm sure a lot of you are big fans of Kisnuka's music. You follow her on Instagram. Some of her works are just pure, like brilliance, absolute brilliance. And today she's going to talk about her tattoo connections as well. So that's going to be very interesting. And next up, and finally, we have the man who I can call a brother, and someone who has always pushed the envelope, pushed the boundaries to find new perspectives, and again, create a bridge between the future and the past. We have Abhinandan Basu, aka Obi. Obi Tattoos out of Germany. It comes from Calcutta and has been trailblazing the tattoo world in the last few years. So welcome, guys. Welcome to all of you. A huge welcome and a huge thank you to all of you for joining this experiment. Should I put it? How are you guys feeling being on this? Before I begin the session, I would like to just state like that. All good with you guys. How are you guys feeling? Excited?
Excited. Yes, very excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. Uh,
Very
so
pleased to be having this discussion, yes.
lovely, 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 lovely to have you. Lovely to have all of you over here. I'm sure it's going to be a very informative, enlightening session for our viewers, our community here in India, in South Asia, primarily. And so, yeah, without wasting much of your time and without wasting our viewers' time, I would like to take this session to what the subject is all about, and we will go one by one with all of you, and we'll start off first with Turu Makina over here, right in the center of your screens, with that stern, beautiful look of his uh, Stu, if you could sort of shed some light on your journey as a tattoo artist till date, the process of reviving Maori tattoo cultures in your own capacities, how has that journey been for you? What lessons have you learned? And how, in general, all over the world, do you think Maori tattoos are represented? If you could just take us into that little world that you have
Sure.
experienced.
Thank you, brother. And thank you for having me on this platform to speak about this, for us as a Māori people, very important subject. For us, tattooing has been around since the dawn of man, the very beginning of human being. So when we talk about tattooing and the origins of tattooing in our culture, it goes back to the gods and the spirit world. And when I talk about the gods, when Māori people talk about the gods, we're talking about the natural forces of the environment, the natural forces of nature. And sometimes we have a tendency to personify them. So for us, tattooing has been around since the very beginning. Traditionally, our people were extensively tattooed. And I'll start back the story back when colonialism happened in New Zealand, and we were probably the last culture on the planet to be colonized by the British. And this had a huge impact on our people in terms of our language, our culture, our ways of living, our environment, everything. The advent of colonialism in New Zealand pretty much tried to wipe out our culture and have access to the land and the resources. So tattooing was one of those practices amongst our people that were nearly wiped out. We yeah, like I say, when the white man turned up in New Zealand, tattooing was outlawed. It became illegal, and so especially the facial tattooing, anything that was ceremonial or had a very ceremonial sort of aspect to our culture was deemed illegal, and so the facial tattooing amongst the males in New Zealand really took a dive. So over the last 27 years or so that I've been involved in the revival of Māori tattooing in New Zealand. It's been a real battle to draw that back from the clutches of history. So I got involved in tattooing because I was performing in cultural dance groups and all that sort of thing, and we had to learn about tattooing just to draw it on for stage performances and all that kind of stuff. So this is where my interest began. And this led, of course, into a natural progression of one of my friends turning up one day with a homemade tattoo machine and getting me to tattoo him. So I tattooed him. And then I kept tattooing and I kept tattooing, and now it's 27 years down the track. And we've pretty much brought the normality of especially facial tattoo amongst our people back into society. But that's been a battle. We've had to deal with Western ideologies of the criminality of tattooing and all this sort of nation. I'm sure many cultures have gone through it. And now we're at the stage now where the facial tattooing in New Zealand is just really erupting right now. It's taking off so much, and our people are starting to reclaim it as a birthright. And although on the face of things this might kind of seem elemental, but for us as a people group, it's one way of reclaiming our spiritual identity, our environmental identity, and our identity in general. Tattooing for us has a very practical meaning. Symbols were taken from nature. All the symbols have a body of knowledge attached to them. Everything goes back to nature, goes back to how we sustain ourselves from the environment. And as I say, we deem the environment as the gods. The ocean is one of the gods. The forest is one of the gods. Humans come along and we're considered the youngest of the brothers of creation. And so when we tattoo ourselves in Aotearoa, we are saying to the world, this is who we are. We tie ourselves back to our sacred mountains where the bones of our ancestors are interred. We say we are the river. The river is us. It sustains our people. Without the river, there's no crops. Without the rain, there's no crops. The environment sustains us. And so when we tattoo ourselves, we're saying to the world that we are, in fact, a symbiotic element of our environment. And in fact, we are the youngest in terms of the youngest brothers and sisters of creation, as you might say. So, yeah, I think that looking at how the Maori tradition of tattooing has impacted our people now, like I say, the revival is just erupting right now in New Zealand, and we're getting to the stage now where we are starting to ceremonialize our practices again. So we have rites of passage, these things that have been taken away from our cultures all across the world. Rite of passages, those ceremonial practices that have that encourage becoming a responsible adult in the world, a responsible person, a responsible human being. And so for us, when especially the facial tattoo, we call it a mataora. That's one term for the facial tattoo. And the history of the mataora tattoo is one of, it covers many different sort of aspects in modern society, including domestic violence and all these type of things. So when you look at the origin stories of our tattooing, there was a domestic violence event between a husband and a wife, and this was the person who brought the art form of tattooing from the spirit world or the underworld into New Zealand, or to the world of life. And so for now, I'm cutting a really long story short here and trying to jam pack it all into one story. So So now for us, we are starting to utilize our tattooing traditions to encourage our people to stand strong, to think, into things like transforming our lives from ones of, there's a lot of gangs, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of trauma amongst our people, and the mataora now, the facial tattooing now is very strongly becoming a symbol of transformation amongst our people. So tattooing for us now is leading our people onto a journey of healing from trauma and one of reclaiming our identity and our place in the world where we can stand proud of who we are and move forward in a positive way in order to make sure that our children have a sustainable and flourishing future. So, yes, this is for me being a part of this. We call it a taonga itukuiho, a treasure that has been handed down by our ancestors, and it's been a privilege for me to be a part of the revival of this art form over the last 26, 27 years. And to see it now, I tattoo faces extensively. It's one of my main roles in the tattoo world in Aotearoa now. And to see people who are coming from the gang life, who are coming from domestic violence and a lot of trauma amongst our people, and then now we can offer this pathway for them to give themselves goals and give themselves a pathway forward to transform their life into something more positive, into something that is a lot more vibrant for them and their children. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much for sort of shedding that light on the true face of how tattoos and the culture and the history of it. Uh, I'm already getting some questions on my DMs, and we will get to those questions in some time. But as we call this session, connecting the dots. Now, stretching from this point that you has made so beautifully, I want to move to our next speaker in the house, again from Australia, Swasthik. First of all, thank you for joining us. Uh, but again, sort of continuing the discussion from where the two was talking about. You have been on your own unique journey as well. Like compared to some of them, you are still fresh into the tattoo world, and still you have explored your own traditions, your own folk cultures, and you have created such a wonderful blend by mixing it with old school tattooing techniques, right? Um, if you could sort of tell us a bit more, of how this journey sort of started for you, how you how you came to this point of creating this mix, and what does the future hold for Swastik's tattooing?
Um, Thank you so much for letting me be part of this panel. I'm really excited to be a part of it. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the exploration of kolam or kolangal art was really something I grew up with back at home. I saw the women, they were drawing these beautiful sacred geometric patterns made of dots and lines and curves on the floor to bring in prosperity, but also to see elders tattooing the kolam on other people. When you think about Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurveda, it's one of the oldest healing systems. And through that came a lot of like anatomical maps that were produced in cave art and in leaf drawings. And with kolam, what it did was kolam tattoos were tattooed in particular body pressure points that were identified in these Ayurvedic maps to relieve sickness or to cure sickness. So, for example, if someone got a column on their wrist, the idea was that the column it would basically tackle a pressure point and start to stabilize your body, remove the blockages, and also start to strengthen metaphysical energies, you know? And so if they got the column on their wrist and they had a pain on their shoulder, it was the notion that if that shoulder pain was linked very closely to a nerve point in the wrist, then the column was so sacred that it would cure that pain. You know, column was used to cure cancer as well. You know, because it was these knots, and it would just trap. Not only would it bring prosperity, but it would trap the sickness in many cases. So yeah, I think for me, like I bridged tattooing. I did an apprenticeship in Australia, and I worked in a shop that they were really in love with, and were driven by American traditional tattooing. And because I knew the Hindu stories, the Hindu imagery very well, I was able to put in the or whatever my mentor taught me in terms of the application and execution of traditional tattooing. I could use that in my own work, but just create a different flavor, just have Hindu imagery and Hindu iconography and things like that. But with the column, you know, that comes straight from like you know, like my grandma was tattooing, you know, she was doing those tattoos on my sister. That is just straight from being a kid in out in the villages and the jungles, in the temples, and just seeing it with my own eyes. That is not, I'm not recreating that in any particular way, because those images mean like the Shiva trident or the sun or the moon. And I'm simply just revisiting those images, but really understanding people's bodies and their composition, and creating patterns that suit their body, but also have a super deep, a beautiful meaning to it, you know? And yeah, and I think in terms of like sort of educating people, or I think tattooing is such a sacred and intimate experience between you as the tattooer and the client. And I think you know, some tattoos they take 4 hours, some tattoos it can take 4 months, some bodysuits take 4 years, and during that time you have such a beautiful connection with your client. And you do talk about the tattoo, and you do talk about the history, and you do talk about the meanings. And I think that's when people seem to get to understand, you know, what is kolam, or why are you tattooing Shiva, or what is the story about Lord Ganesh. Yeah, so I guess the short, simple version of it, but yeah, I guess that's it.
When you talk about it, it's definitely short and simple, but we who follow your work know the amount of work and amount of research that you sort of put into it to bring it to this simplistic level of explaining it, right? And
Mm,
that's so great on you. Swasthik. Uh,
thank
but yeah, you know,
you.
and yes, and sort of stretching from there, uh, I would sort of move a little bit top on the world map and invite our next speaker from Japan, uh, Taku-san, Taku Oshima. Uh, a lot of us in the community know him as the person who is solely responsible for the revival of Jomon period tattoos, which are probably the the lesser known about historical tattoo forms from Japan. But that is just the just the tip of the iceberg, as we say, when it comes to his experience with tattooing and his experience with the revival of traditional tattooing cultures of Japan. So, Taku-san, first of all, thank you so much for joining us here
Yeah, thank you very much.
in this little session. And if you could sort of tell our audience and the rest of us over here as well, uh, like how has your journey been, in this process of revival? There's been a lot of battles that you have fought. There are a lot of stories that you have unearthed, and you are giving a lot of these stories modern identities as well. So, if you could tell us all a bit more of this huge journey that you have encompassed so far.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Taku-san, you can.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Hello, guys. I'm Taku from Japan. I started tattooing in India actually 27 years ago. It's
Oh.
very amazing for me to talk with Indian modern tattooists here and now. Thank you, everybody, again. I was traveling around the world, especially Asia, when I was young. Then started tattooing by myself. I learned by myself. After for a while, I focused to neo-tribal tattoo style, what is inspired tribal tattoos all around the world. And for now, I'm making my business in Japan, in Tokyo. So I'm making tattoo of Ainu and Okinawa and Jomon. And I will explain about Ainu and Okinawa. Then there are tribal tattoos in North End Island, Hokkaido, and the West End Island, Okinawa in Japan. They had a tattoo tradition just until 100 years ago. So I revived them from many photo and journals by anthropologists. I'm using traditional methods to make them too. Ainu tattoo by engraving scarification by obsidian knife, and Okinawa tattoo by hand poking with awamori mixed ink. Awamori is Japanese strong spirits alcohol, and Jomon tattoo is a kind of hyperstasis. There are no direct proof if ancient Japanese had tattoo or not. But we can find many clay figure and pottery from historical ruin. They have very gorgeous design on them. And spiral and chord pattern are special design of them. Probably it is symbolized snake. Snake was the god in ancient Asia, and I'm tattooist. So I think those design on face and body of clay figure are tattoo design. I'm taking idea from those clay figure and pottery, of course. I make Jomon tattoo as my art, what is connecting sense of modern client in the market. If it's cool enough, people like it. And if it's not cool, nobody care about. So I'm trying to make it with impact to the people as much as possible. I started the Jomon Tattoo project in 2013. Japan Tattooing Society had a little bit problem in that time. One young tattoo artist was arrested by Osaka State Police because of he doesn't have doctor's license. Then he decided to fight in the court. And during the court, I made exhibition of Jomon tattoo 2 times and talked in TV and newspaper as well. I was tattooing in the exhibition just in front of the many audience. For me, that was a counter attack against the negative atmosphere about the tattoo in Japan. I wanted to beat their face up in my way. Now we had the tattoo as universal entertainment much older time than modern medicine. So how come we tattooists should have doctor's license? We won, of course, in the courts. So now tattoo is not illegal anymore. Then we tattooists in Japan are making association for negotiating with government to make a new law about the tattoo. Then Jomon tattoo is getting popular year by year in my studio at least. I hope other tattooists will make it also because Jomon period is not my own thing. So about different from ukiyo-e tattoo, I mean like Japanese style like koi fish or Chinese superstar, you know. There it is wabori with its traditional Japanese tattoo, and they started 200 years ago, and it was one of the earliest modern tattoo culture of the world. So they are not tribal tattoo, but if you see them carefully, you will realize dragon, which is ultimate snake, is dancing in a spiral cloud background. So it is just same that Indian people respect the Naga even modern time now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for. I mean, I'm sure 99 out of 100 of us who are here today, at least. I think the one being you, Taku-san, the others, none of us would probably knew so much about what you just spoke and what you just informed us all about. And it is so interesting, again, before I move to our next speaker, again, to just sort of like point it out, like I think which all of us will be feeling at this point, that how all of you come from different backgrounds, different parts of the world, have your own different struggles, have your own different journeys. Yet there are these connecting factors there because there are struggles. There are those revival journeys. There is those learning of your own histories, learning of your own ancestral histories, and creating much more inclusive and as I think you also mentioned so well, that creating a future where your own people are more comfortable in embracing their own cultures. Uh, Great work by all of you guys. But now I would like to move to our next speaker, the wonderful musician, artist herself, Nuka. Nuka, first of all, thank you so much for joining this panel and uh, bringing a fresh perspective of being a collector and not just an artist yourself, but experiencing the tattoo world as a collector. And you yourself have deep dived and tried to learn and also depicted it on your own skin, tribal tattoo art and its motives, and learn some of it, the cultural history behind it. So if you could sort of tell us, through maybe some of your own tattoo experiences or what you have come across in general, uh, what sort of made you get into this world on your
First of all, I just want to say I'm so honored to be here, and I'm consider myself very lucky. And to hear these stories, it's really like it feels so emotional, and it's amazing to hear this because I never really did any research about tribal tattoos, but just when I would think of the word tribal, to me it means community, it means belonging, it means family, and I somehow would always relate it very closely to our connection with the earth. And I feel like in this modern day today we have, our values have changed, and I also think that what we consider important has changed. And I also think that because we don't live in that sense as community anymore, that respect that we had for nature, for each other, and to live in that harmony with nature. I feel like we've lost a lot of that. And to me, somehow, this this idea of having these tribal tattoos is a reminder of that respect, for nature and for the community, for each other, which I think is what really the world needs right now. And I think that this pandemic has shown more than anything else, that it is really about your community. Like, this is where you find your support, this is where you find growth, this is where you find the help that you need. And I was just drawn towards, without even knowing, this kind of dots and lines, these symmetrical patterns, without really knowing anything much about it. And when I was younger, I just thought it was cool to get a tattoo. But as I got older, I started to feel um, that it was a spiritual experience. Every time that I got a tattoo, I felt like it's almost like a ritual that I am marking my skin, um, as either a tribute or a reminder or a memory or a celebration, something monumental. And I actually had these. I put these dots here, and I put some dots here because I used to see in the films, whenever they used to show in Bollywood films, they used to show women from the villages. They used to show them with these dots. That's how I knew about this. Otherwise, I didn't know about it. And then when I started traveling, I went to Gujarat, and I saw the Rabari women there, and I saw them with these beautiful tattoos, and I really felt so bad that I never saw that like replicated or recreated or in the Indian tattoo scene. Like, I never, I don't, and I don't know enough also. I'm not an authority on this, but I think, there are so many tribes from India, in South India, in Bengal, in Bihar, in Nagaland. All of them have this beautiful tribal art, and I've never really seen many tattoo artists in India doing that kind of work. And as an artist myself, I have struggled with this idea of identity. Who am I? Where do I come from? And a lot of the times when I would travel outside of the country, people would be like, "Oh, you make electronic music. Why don't you add?" And this is I'm talking about like 5-6 years ago. Why don't you add Indian elements, to your music? And I was like, why should I add Indian elements to my music just because I'm from India? Like, you can't force that on me. And to me, I wanted to rebel against that thought. Don't force me to do this just because I'm from there. But as I got older, and I would like to think wiser, I started to realize the value of my culture, the depth, the beauty of Indian sounds, of instruments. And it was just, I started to bring that into my music, visually, orally. And now when I go out into the world with my work, this is what makes me unique. This is what makes me stand out. And I feel like I would love to see more tattoo artists in India embrace, this culture and take it out to the world because it's so beautiful. And I think that there is so much education and so much knowledge that we can bring from this, and we can share from this. This is my only wish. Like, this is yeah, that's a long answer to your short question.
No, no, I think that's so pertinent. What you said, it's like, because that is the main crux of every discussion, especially in India. Whenever we discuss tribal tattooing cultures or histories, or the communities where they come out of from actually. Like, because this is something I'm sure Obi will be doing, that we have discussed so long, for years now, that uh, one is that does the Indian tattoo community respect its own tribal tattoo cultures, or does it spend enough time into researching them? Second, being that uh, how do you give back to those communities? How do you give back to the indigenous people? How do you give back to the tribes? How do you give them the due recognition, right? Because there comes the questions of cultural appropriation as well, which is a very important part of such discussions again. And on that note, let me introduce all of you our ultimate speaker of this panel, uh, Abhinandan Basu, Obi, who tattoos out of Mannheim, Germany right now, hails from Calcutta, West Bengal, uh, has has created a very unique style of his own in tattooing called the bongo style, which takes a lot of inspiration from certain folk art forms from India as well, and he has mixed it again with certain tattoo aesthetics and created something absolutely new. But beyond that, Obi, you have also you have exposed certain folk art forms of India to a wider audience beyond the country's contours. And how has your art generally been perceived in India, and how does it get perceived where you do tattoo out of right now? If you could sort of stitch these things together and give us a overview.
Hi everyone. It's really nice to see you all. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, perfect. Super happy to be here with all you guys. So answering your question, what was your question again? How is it perceived? Is that the question?
So I mean, if you could just sort of tell us, like how you first of all sort of got into this journey of creating what you call the bongo style tattoos, what inspired it, what gave it the new dimension that it has in today's day, and in terms of how it's perceived in India, and or the kind of reactions you generally get in India to your style of tattooing, and the kind and the way it's perceived out there, say just in Germany or Europe. And do you see a gap,
Mm,
or do you see lessons which for you or for your collectors?
right. So I think it's very important what the speaker who came before me, Anushka, I believe is her name, what she spoke about identity. Even though I had no problems with my own, because I'm pretty, I was always very confident about where I come from, and I was quite, let's say, married into my culture. I think most people who come from West Bengal come from a very strong cultural influence. Their influence of culture on their lives is pretty strong. So I personally had no problems with identity. Uh, in fact, that is what helped me create the style. Bongo, as most Bengali people would know, means homeland in Bengali, in Bangla, basically. So the culture, the work that I put out is based on that. It is influenced, it has various parts of it. There is an ornament and there is a storytelling part of it. The ornamental part of it is influenced by Alpona, which is basically the Bengali style of doing rangoli. And we can go into details about that. There are various reasons why they were done. There is the religious, spiritual part of it, and then it was taken over by Rabindranath Tagore's Shantiniketan, the university that they had created, and they had created an art form based on that, a little more accessible art form, accessible to the common people, right? So a part of the ornamental part of my style is based on Alpona. Basically, I've been learning about it from some Alpona masters from the last 2 years, I'm in touch with them, and I've been learning about it. I've been practicing with them. I've also been reading up on them. Right? The storytelling part of it is based on Photochitra, which is basically scroll paintings. It's also based on Shora Chitra, which is basically paintings on pottery, which is very similar to what Taku-san was talking about before. We have a history of painting on pottery as well. It's also based on woodcut prints, right? Which is also something which Japanese tattooing. What he was talking about, the one which is what we know as Japanese tattooing, the koi fishes, the dragons, the phoenixes, and so on and so forth. They are basically woodcut prints that were represented as tattoos, right? Bengalis have a long history of woodcut prints as well. So I have been taking influences for that as well. So the drawing style, the storytelling, and all of these, right? But what I did not want to do is I just did not want to pick it up and tattoo it as it is, because then in the future I cannot really claim it to be my own. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's already been done by someone else. Some artist who's probably sitting in a village and drawing them. So if I just take it, it's stealing basically, right? Yeah. Even if I wouldn't be caught now, maybe in the next 5 years, but eventually someone will stand up and claim it. So I didn't want that. So I did take influences from all of these forms of art, but I created a drawing style which I believe is uniquely my own. I don't think, I don't believe it. I know it's uniquely my own. So what I'm trying to do is create a visual language which talks about contemporary Bengali life, basically, or contemporary Bengali culture, let's say, right? Because contemporary Bengalis do not have a tribal tattoo history. So what I'm trying to do is trying to create this visual language which represents essentially Bengali culture. I would not be arrogant enough to say that my work represents Indian culture, because as most Indians would agree that there is no such thing as Indian culture. India is a culmination of different cultures, and I represent my people, which is the Bengalis. So, or at least I would like to represent my work. Through my work, I would like to represent the Bengali culture. That is basically what Bongo style is. About how it's been perceived, of course, there's a reason why I'm here and I'm not in Calcutta. Is because the acceptance of anything which is new is it's a bit late in India, unfortunately. But that's also it's unfortunately true. We tend to accept our own treasures a little bit late. It needs to be, it needs a stamp of approval from the West. So-called, like the white man needs to put their stamp of approval on anything, and then we tend to accept it much more easily. It just goes down more smoothly. It's like Vaseline, it just eases it. It's just easier with that. So I realized that a long time before. Pretty early in my career. So I kind of knew that. So I did that. I thought if that's the way it has to go, so I might as well go to the West and get it approved. And lately, it's been as I probably can see from my work. It's the acceptance of my work in the West has been more. I'm not saying it's not there in India. It is there now, but it has come. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating facts, right? There's nothing to complain about. I'm pretty happy at where I am. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I wish Indian people or public people in general would be more accepting or more of their own culture, but I think it's a journey. There's a lot of reasons for that. There are economic reasons, cultural reasons. Education is one thing. Once all of these start getting better, of course, things will change. But right now, this is where we stand. Yeah, is that good?
Yes, so as always, that is very good. But yeah, and as some of our viewers already putting questions to us, like I'll try and do at this point in time is some of those questions are somewhat similar, so I'll try and plug them together sort of save time and also make more sense to all of you. And I'll just throw these questions open to all of you and whoever, each of you, whoever wants to take it up. One of the first questions is again, like uh, now tattooing is just one medium, right? Now we have all of you have spoken about these, whether they are traditional art forms, whether they're tribal culture inspired art, or whether they're markings of our ancestors. Now whether they were inspired from wood carvings or ceramics or pottery. Uh, but now it seems that in today's date, in the modern age, uh, I mean, do you guys think that tattooing can become that one art form that sort of brings these different indigenous art cultures of the world together? Do you think tattooing is that art form that can do that?
Well,
Who's this
if
question
nobody's
directed
going to speak,
towards?
I'll go.
Yeah, yeah. Do
Sorry,
please
Obi,
go ahead.
go, man.
Yes, do.
Well,
Please do.
Absolutely. Because tattooing has been used traditionally and historically in things like rite of passage and these sorts of really important community events where the tribal will gather around and see our young people transition into adulthood. These types of events have more than just a fashionable experience about them. Like I say, they lead us into leading a life of responsibility. And as our sister mentioned earlier, that this is really something that the world is sorely lacking right now. And these practices that have been abolished through the modern world has left our people in a state of immaturity psychologically. And these are the things that we need to revive and bring back, because if we continue on down the path that we're going in the modern world, we're living on the precipice of destruction, right? We're messing this planet up left, right, and center. And if we can come together as an indigenous community and using this art form to bring our people together to build a strong, resilient people, then of course, that's only going to have beneficial effects for us as humans.
I'd like to add to what Tu said, was saying about art forms being banned, right? I don't know if Shubham knows this, but when I was very young and growing up in Calcutta, we had something called Chorok Mela, which is basically a, like a fair, but with suspensions, body suspensions. And this was not done like how you see body suspensions being done now in really fancy studios now. This was done with like two bamboo sticks, tied together in a right angle, and there was a guy hanging from needles from the other end, and they were like just spinning this bamboo stick, and women were jumping on open blades, and people were putting things in their body that does not belong in that part of the body. And this art form, which is basically body suspension and piercings, was banned by the British government. So these small fairs were actually illegal, and almost I don't think it even happens anymore in Calcutta. But I was lucky enough where I grew up in Calcutta was not such a modern part of the city, so it still existed in these small pockets, and I'm sure in villages it still happens. But that is basically what body suspension is, and we Indian people are not even we don't even know about it, that it exists. It's pretty sad. It's really sad because even with the tribal tattooing, like what Anushka said with the Rabari tattooing, I have done some Rabari. I have been trying to. One of my side projects is to revive the tribal tattooing, or try to revive some of the Indian tribal tattooing. I've been working on it for the last 2 years. So I've done these. I've done a whole chest piece of this Rabari designs, and they're beautiful designs. And uh, we as a country, as a community, are so very late in recognizing the beauty of our own culture, and somehow it's a bit sad that other people outside of the country they are more receptive, or they are more they acknowledge the beauty of our culture more than we do, which is a little sad, you know. So
I think it,
which brings you know, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, sorry. I was just gonna say, really quickly add to that is that I think it, it's, there's been, it just hasn't, like in some other cultures, there's been like, it's all been recorded, there's been documentation. It's sort of, in India, there's so many villages, so many different tribes, so many different
Exactly.
families practicing different kind of tattooing on different people, like what my grandma did is so different to what the old lady next door did, to the markings that the lady next door to her got, and this is just within South India. This is Tamil Nadu. I'm not talking about all of India. And so it is sad that you know that it's just not celebrated and as much. But it's nice to see that you know there's there's people like us, there's that we love it, like you go and you see the Rabari tattoos, they look amazing. And but I think it's good, I think it
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
celebrated. I do, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, of course, through discussions like this is a step forward, towards that direction,
And
where more people
you
will
know,
take it.
uh, sorry to butt in, but sort of I feel sort of I actually have a very gradual question to that mode of discussion, which is I think something that Nuka brought up during her part of this is the question of finding your own identity, right? Sometimes, and uh, that journey of finding your own identity, say especially in a country like India, it's a very complex one. It has a lot of layers. It has the layers of caste, it has the layers of patriarchy, it has the layers of your social status as well, uh, very much,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And so in again, sort of coming, so sort of stemming from that understanding, right? Like, uh, how can modern tattooing sort of say in a complex situation that of India, give back to these communities? Like, how does it? How
Mm.
can the tattooing community?
Well,
Uh,
see, one of the things that is one of the
and
problems that
as
Indian
both
tribal
as
tattooing
both as artists and collectors, like the community as a whole.
Mm.
yeah, one of the problems that we while trying to revive some of the tribal Indian tattooing, the problems that I'm facing right now is the context, right? The context of the tattooing, because it was not recorded, it was not like what Swasthik said, it was not recorded, it was not written down. The context changes. It has changed. In fact, the same design will have different meaning from one village to the other. So you can't really, it's very difficult to put it into the right context. Uh, so it's very easy to misrepresent these designs. You know what I mean? So that is another issue with reviving these tattoos. So maybe if it was, it's almost sometimes you have to basically look at a design and form your own context based on what you've heard. Like you can take 2-3 different meanings and try to find your own meaning and basically give it a meaning.
Mm.
That is basically how you have to approach it. Uh, I was trying to make a point. What was the question again?
I mean, yeah, like how
I,
how
I
how
lost the
can
question.
how can the tattoo community of artists and collectors and enthusiasts, lovers, everyone who's part of this community, how can this community? Because see, it's out there that we okay. The bare fact is that we are fascinated by these art forms. When we get them on
Mm.
our own bodies, it's a direct correlation with that. We are fascinated by these art forms. We are fascinated by the stories. where they come from, right? But at the same time, it becomes our own social responsibility as well, to somehow give back to these because these
Yeah.
communities have lost their own
Right.
identities in
Right.
India, right? Be it
That's what I was coming at. Yeah.
colonization,
Yeah.
like as Tu also
Yeah. Yeah.
rightly mentioned, right? When the white man came,
So
uh, the people lost started losing pride in their because they were forced into certain
yeah, but
constructs.
like in the Indian context, it's not just the white man; it is also the brown man himself, right? Because the tribal tattooing in India, as we all know, that there's something called caste system that exists in India, which is basically when people realize that how we can take a really bad concept and make it even worse. So that is how the caste system of caste came in, right? So what happens is, this is another thing that I learned, is that when the tribal people in India generally are considered to be of the lower caste. So, and once you mark yourself with their designs, that means you're very easily identified in the city. When you're out in the city looking for a job or something like that, the higher caste people, they will easily identify with your tattoo, right? Based on your tattoo from which that you're from lower caste. So the younger generation of these tribal people refuse to get tattooed, and rightfully so, because they don't want to be discriminated against, and that is one of the reasons why these tattoos are disappearing, and that is one of the reasons why
Yeah.
the contexts are so blurred, right? So what I would like to do, or I'm trying to do, is try to tattoo as much of these designs as I can on other people, right? And maybe if more people join in and they start tattooing these designs on other people who do not necessarily belong to the tribe or a lower caste, maybe that could help take away the stigma from these designs. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
uh, when you have other people accepting these designs on their own
Talking
body,
about the
then
caste
maybe
system.
we can take the stigma away from it. I know it's a huge, it's a grand idea.
It's a massive
I
discourse
mean,
as well.
this has been going on for thousands of years. This caste system, so obviously it's going to take a little more than tattooing designs on your body to take it out, but it could be one of the things that help. You know what I mean? So that is one of
Yeah.
my plans, to tattoo as much as I can of these designs on other people, and so that the stigma, I can help in taking that stigma away from it a little bit, and that
Like on
is
that
maybe we can
note,
give back.
like on that note, like Taku-san, like you were also talking about your struggles
Yeah, yeah, I know.
in terms of doing what
I
you were
know.
doing.
I know what you mean. Uh, for example, for me, the tribal tattoo or ancient tattoo is already finished once in Japan. So it's kind of fantasy also for modern Japanese people. But you guys, living in India, and it's still connecting real tribal society, right? So
Mm.
it's obviously it's sad, but for me, I envy you guys very much
That
because
can give a bit of
you can do many
Uh,
things
add,
actually.
may I
Yeah, yeah,
add
yeah.
something?
Like
I understand what he's saying, of
make
course.
make like make NPO, make NPO and
You know,
connect with tribal people and teach them how they have their tattoo has a big value, Then teach them
yeah.
Exactly.
how to
Yeah.
organize professional tattoo studios to open to the world. Then
Mm.
local tribal tattooists can make business to the world. Then they can survive it. They can continue their culture to the world.
Yeah.
Nuka.
It
Yeah,
I
is.
think
I you.
you were on the verge of adding to what Taku-san was saying.
Yeah, there is this line, and I think it's Martin Luther King Jr. who said that, and I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly, but you need as much organization for peace as much as you need for war. So if you really want to
Yeah,
build something, you have to get
Mm.
organized.
yeah, yeah.
As artists, I feel, and this is something I personally have experienced in my entire life. I never had any organization in my work. because I felt that structure was going to stifle me, or tie me down. But in the last year, I have brought structure into my work, and it is actually setting me free and helping me to achieve the things that I want to. And I think that if a community is built around this, that kind of support can be offered back, because it is true cultural appropriation. I mean, this is a conversation in the world right now. So if you are taking something from someone, how do you give back? I mean, it could be something
Mm,
as simple as, um, you know, a certain percentage of whatever money I make, tattooing these, this art goes into a fund, which then works to, empower those people or educate them, or,
Nice.
form that community, because that's
yeah.
also work. Forming a community or making an organization is also hard work, and people have a lot going on in their lives just to live your normal regular life, do your work and your art and your family and everything. So it is an effort, but it would be easier if people actually come together to do it. And
Mm,
I also think, like, when it comes to India, and this is actually related to what was being spoken about a little bit earlier, I feel in India we are not rewarded for thinking differently. We are rewarded for being uniform. We are rewarded for staying in the box, and we are punished when we think outside of the box.
mm,
So I think it's for us, as a people, to actually come together, in, okay, say, the tattoo community and enthusiasts and tattoo collectors, to
mm,
actually understand the psyche of the country that we live in, which we already know, and then
yeah.
to form that, and to organize so that people know what are these tattoos. And this, what you said about the caste system, I mean, this is massive. We keep talking about colonization,
Mm.
but we have this really screwed up system which still exists. So if you do actually take this, and it is the tattoo I mean, it's huge. It's a big responsibility, but if it was to happen, what a big win it would be.
Mm,
True, true. It is. It's a
Excellent.
huge responsibility, and it's a lot of other people, other tattooers have to come on board and truly, understand what's at stake here, and not just give lip service. It's you got to put in the work and not
Hmm.
just talk about putting the work. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
that needs to happen. uh,
And I think,
or it doesn't happen. It either happens or it doesn't. But I know what I have to do, so I'm going to do it, and that's pretty much that's about it.
Awesome. Well, we,
And then there are people like Swasthik, and there are some other guys I've seen online who are trying to do really. They are trying to revive. They're trying to. They started taking pride. Pride is not the good, nice word to use, but they're in this case I can use it. They're starting to take
I
pride
think
in their own
onus is
culture
the
and
right
do
word in
do something.
this scenario.
Yeah, onus. Yeah, that's probably a better word. So yeah, sure. The things look bright. Yeah, and. And with cultural appropriation, it's a tricky thing to do, because who do you point fingers at? Like there are, I have seen already in the tattooing community that, especially abroad, outside of India, that a lot of tattooers have taken these existing Indian tribal designs, and they're tattooing them
Yeah.
without really mentioning where they're taking these designs from.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yep.
so what happens is they're doing it in a very sneaky way. They don't mention where these designs come from, so their
yeah,
clients, they kind of lead their clients into believing that it's their
Yeah.
design,
yeah,
and they don't
And
correct
I
them
yeah,
believe,
when
Yep.
their clients ask where it's from.
and
So that
like
is true
yeah.
cultural
this,
appropriation. So to expect them to put up money in a fund is a bit. It's a difficult thing to make
and
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this phenomenon of culturally appropriating, say, Indian tribal art motifs into tattooing by, say, people artists in Europe, it's still rather new. But say two, maybe you could sort of like shed some more light, because
Yeah,
Maori tattooing
two would know
has
all
been
about it,
just
right?
Maori
Yeah.
tattooing has been just objectified and basically turned into booklets. And
Yeah.
because
Basically,
I remember
li-
8 years back when I honestly got exposed to tattooing in its true form or everything. And a lot of people uh, who I met at that point of time, including artists who say have been tattooing for even 10, 12 years, didn't really differentiate between Maori tattooing or Polynesian tattooing, or
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
so the whole 9 years that way.
Yeah.
So if you could sort of like,
Yes.
if you have some
Yes.
interesting
This is
I
stories
think
to
the
share.
literally
cultural appropriation.
every tattoo
The
artist
cult-
needs to buy Maori people a drink,
Yeah,
because somewhere down their career they have made some money of doing
yeah.
Maori or
Yeah.
Polynesian tattoos,
This has
including
been a
myself.
great issue for us over the years of the revival, and even Japan. I mean, look at Japan. You know how many Western
Also Japan,
tattooists
yeah,
bite
yeah,
Japanese tattoo, right?
Yeah.
They're probably the most
absolutely,
bitten culture on the planet. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely.
And our people are becoming fierce right now. We are fiercely defending our cultural appropriation. I mean, there's people amongst my culture who will actually actively go out and seek out those who are cultural appropriating Māori
Yeah.
tattoos and have them up, call them out. You got to call them out. You have to have them up. You got to say, bro, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you taking our culture and making money off our culture? Our culture is not your paycheck. You know, it's an
Yeah,
ongoing issue, and it will
that'll be a
always
good
be an
sticker
ongoing
for a
issue.
convention, though. That'll be a great
that is.
sticker for a
I've seen this
convention.
happening actually. I've seen this happen in conventions, and that's pretty much how you do
Yes.
it. That's pretty much how you do it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that cultural appropriation is it's happening to all indigenous cultures. Maori, Polynesians, obviously Polynesian is one of those ones that are really in the forefront. But Japanese tattooing, I mean, Yakuza tattooing. How many Americans are tattooing that stuff? How many British people are
Yeah.
tattooing that stuff? Without
I
even
mean, if
saying
Japan,
thank you to Japan.
no,
You know,
not even that.
it's crazy. The world sucks, man.
Now it's theirs. It's
But
obviously
it's up to us
Yeah,
to call it out. You got to call it out. And for us as a Moko collective in New Zealand, we figured it's easier to try and educate the artists than it is to try and educate the planet. We went to conventions
exactly. Yeah,
around the world to try and educate the artists. Why are you taking other people's culture and making money off it? You should be taking inspiration from your own culture.
Yeah.
And,
And I
I'll give
think
you this
obviously, you
example.
can see it's passionate.
When I was trying to figure out a name for my studio, it was really difficult because all the Indian sounding names were already taken, and not by studios in India.
Right?
I was like,
Germany's
shit,
atrocious for
you
that,
know,
man.
yeah,
but also and also
but
also
I
like,
do started calling some people out. Just the other day, I saw someone post a tattoo. It was a really good tattoo, but they said a Tibetan Sanskrit mantra. That shit doesn't even exist. What is a Tibetan Sanskrit mantra? These are, so I mean, I said that like someone who can read Sanskrit, I don't understand what. I mean, he deleted my comment and later also deleted that it's Sanskrit. But
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a wrong message that they're putting across. They a lot of the times they would really tattoo like Indian gods or goddesses and give them the wrong weapons.
the
Give
wrong
them the
weapon.
wrong number of
Yeah.
arms. And it's just like anything goes. It's
I
It's
think
chaotic out there, man. It really is.
I remember having this conversation with Swasthik, I think, for last year, and she I think shared some really interesting anecdotes also of her experience with this, like of how do you even like educate your clients about like, okay, no, this DT, I mean, has say these arms, or like this is the weapon, or like this is where they look
Yeah.
their body, etc.
I think oh man, I just think obviously going back to tattooing being such a personal experience, between client and you as the tattooer. that's when you have a really wonderful opportunity to actually like talk to your clients that become like friends and family, and to tell them like this is what Lord Ganesh means, and this is what he does. And I think that's really quite beautiful. But when it comes to other artists, like Obi was saying, I think, you know, there was one situation I did see like I think we both seen a Kali Ma tattoo by someone, and all the weapons were wrong. And I think it is important to even just send them a message and just say, hey, just so you know, Kali Ma doesn't carry this, but she carries that, because otherwise, you know, it's disrespectful anyway. You know, there's a reason why gods are portrayed in our culture in a certain way, carrying certain weaponry related to a certain story, and you know, messing with that and changing that is super disrespectful to me anyway. I think, you know, so I think it's really important as artists. You know, we have so much love, and we spend so much time creating uh, uh, tattoos, you know, drawing them, and then and I think just, I feel like I hold a responsibility also spend that kind of, you know, knowledge, or having that sort of customer service interaction, and really like being passionate about explaining why so and so is this way, or what is the difference between South Indian column and then going and Rangoli, you know, or Rabari designs. I think it's really important. That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Back-
on that note, I think it's a good note for me to sort of bring our this wonderful discussion to a close. I honestly don't want to. I wish we could be going on with it for very long.
There's so much more to say.
But so much. There's
Yes.
so much more to say. So much more to learn from each other.
Yeah.
It's an endless form of learning
Yeah.
for all of us. But again, I genuinely thank you to all of you guys, because you guys have truly helped us and helped this session live up to its name of connecting the dots. All of your individual stories, individual struggles, individual journeys of reviving or creating something new, either be giving back to the community, empowering your communities. Uh, in even a small discussion of an hour, we find that there are so many connecting dots. There are so many connecting links for all of us. And here's to hoping that maybe this community can thrive, and modern tattooing can, in a ways, become a bigger realm than its own, and look for and give to people beyond its own. On that note, thank you, all of you, and